Okay. We have a couple new folks here tonight, right?
Yeah.
I see. Becky. I mean,
Hello.
I'm sure there's still a
Hello.
lot Bailey's too. Who's who's Quaker Taker?
Taker is blue slash purple hair girl who's in
Hi.
Tiny.
Oh, okay. It was the what color is my hair?
Yeah.
I
Hello.
remember things. All right. I think Robbie is going to be recording too, so that way, if there are some really good questions and conversations we have, those are recorded so people can kind of backtrack if they need to, or other people who didn't get to sit in will have an opportunity.
Hooray.
I'll talk about some specifics, but other than that, the floor will be open for you guys to ask. And like even the players that have been around for longer, if there are certain world things that you're curious about, feel free to ask because I don't mind. I can ramble for a long time. And if I haven't created it yet, it could be created now. So you might be helping me to solidify world events. So don't worry, like everybody's questions are valid. Um there are no silly questions, I'll say. I mean, I know I say there are silly questions in the questions thing sometimes, but tonight's a free for all. So feel free. Yeah, I guess for the newcomers, just to kind of maybe repeat and broaden a little bit about what Kingdoms and Gateway Games in general is all about is um, we wanted to, Robbie and I mean, it all started with Z World. Z World was Robbie's baby, and um, I came on board to assist. And then slowly over time, that built and grew. And then over COVID, I had this crazy, and then that happened. And Riptide was a joke that I just kind of grabbed onto. And but all the games and all the creations and all the teamwork that's involved creating these very near and dear to our hearts. And doing things like this just helps to encourage others to find that love within the game worlds and feel a little bit more comfortable about engaging with certain story elements. But I can easily say that when it comes to lore, when it comes to the rules, any of that stuff, the most important part is enjoyment and kind of just finding community. And then the rest of it will fall into place over time. So don't put too much stress on yourself. There is a lot to learn, but just because you're not perfect at it, just because you don't know everything, doesn't mean you're not suited to play. Um, Swoop? Did I disappear? I would say that Kingdoms as a whole, um, as a fantasy concept, there are some very similar elements like dragons, there's all those fun things, there's fairies. But we do try to approach it a little bit differently. We did get the opportunity to streamline it and basically take out all the outdated things that were in a lot of the other fantasy LARPs that are still running and try to make it our own. So hopefully the lore will help to express that. Yeah, that's my piece. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions that or angles that we want to start with. I mean, I can ramble on about the alliance. I can ramble on about the rift. Where do we want to start?
Maybe you want to
I
start
guess
with
the
like
question.
the. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
was just gonna say, did you maybe want to start with the overarching Gateway lore and how Gateway is an in-game thing too, with the Rift to the Well of Fate to etc.?
How like the rift started
Well, and how the game
like
worlds
as a
of
gateway
games are.
concept.
Yeah.
So we actually have a lot of games kind of sitting in the shadows. But what Chantal's talking about is Riptide, Kingdoms, Z-World, they all have something very important kind of connecting them. And there was a story element that happened a couple years ago with Z-World. There was an introduction of Norse mythology. And we had a very disruptive character named Loki participate in some very important activities going on in the game world. And when that happened, there was, I'm just going to summarize it. There was a space laser. That's a whole lot of no context, but there was a space laser that cut through time and space, existence itself, and it actually punctured through every reality. Now, the players didn't learn this until much later, and even the first, I think, year of Kingdoms, nobody knew this except the NPCs. So basically, when this space laser struck the various realities, this is when the rift was created in the Kingdoms world. This is also why in Riptide, the Bermuda Triangle swallows people up and sends them to another world. So everything is connected. Potentially, this opens up an opportunity for us to do crossover events in the future, which is a whole nother thing. So yeah, so like I said, the concept for Gateway Games and why we're called Gateway Games is this connection between all of the game worlds. Yes, it's all connected, Briar. It's something that we felt was kind of important for consistency's sake, how we have the rule set that carries on through all the different games, and yeah. I can see people are typing, so I just don't want to ramble on. No. So in game, there was almost a character that knew. There was almost a character that used a plot item to ask how the rift was created. And had that person done it, they would know in game. But no, that barrier has not been crossed. And I'm not sure it would provide much additional information. It's just fun. It's an Easter egg. Oh, I didn't bring my water over here like a dummy. Yeah, I think it's important, and that's why the logo too is the vortex. Can we go over why Reketre wants to kill everything? Yes. So just to kind of give a basis here, just because we're in our third year, there's a lot of story that's happened. And one of the main plot points is a creature or a being known as Reketre. So, where do I even start? It kind of goes all the way back to the different types of creatures in the world, just to kind of give you a basis. So, dragons are, one of many different types of these major creatures that exist in the world called leviathans. So the leviathans have not been seen for well over 2024 years. Some people believe that they did exist. Some people believe that they don't. No one has seen them since, but they are your colossus. There's your dragons. There's your major creatures. Basilisk, I think, would be another good example. So there were them, and there were Eternals. So Eternals, also I think known as the Boundless, the Realmless. Hi, Rumpelstiltskin. They're the Fae. So we do have a Fae existence in the world. We do have Leviathans, which are your dragon types. Now the Eternals themselves, and I can get into this a little bit with what happened when the rift actually came into the world. They vanished. So, but back in the past, they were present. Leviathans were present. Of course, Fae were being Fae, and crazy stuff was going on. They were at the peak of their power, and people were starting to have discussions about what their purpose was and what their intent was. And that actually sparked a lot of civil war between different factions of the ancient kingdoms. When this happened, the Eternals kind of sided with several different groups of humans. And the other humans went, oh no, we're in trouble because they have magic and we don't. So these humans went and searched the land trying to find Leviathans. And there were very, very few that were successful. Now, the historical recounts of this time are varied, but it is said that they did find one. And basically, the Leviathan said, we're not going to get involved in your mortal games. This isn't for us. Go away. So, last ditch effort, the humans that didn't have Eternals on their side sought out the creatures that were the children of the Leviathans. Now, the children of the Leviathans are any mythical creature that you can think of that is multiple creatures in one. So, like a chimera, a sphinx would be a good example. In our world, a drake is a mixture of a serpent creature and a dragon. So these creatures were a little bit easier to sway. The humans actually were able to convince them to join their side. So we had these creatures on one side, which they became known as the Sentinels, and they had the Eternals on the other side of that war. Now, when the rift exploded, the Eternals literally vanished. No one knew what had happened to them. They were just gone. On the flip side, the Sentinels were like, you know what? We probably shouldn't have been here. Fate has spoken. That's a bad omen. See you later. And they just left. So nothing's been known or seen of the Sentinels since then. Now, Reketre, she is our big bad right now. One of our big bads, I would say. But she's the one in charge. She is a Sentinel. It is confirmed. She is a Drake, and she is a water Drake. She has control of storms. She has the ability to pull life from things, which we've kind of called the Blight. And her other powers I won't discuss. So Reketre was causing issues for quite a while before the players interacted with her. So there was a lot of things going on with Reketre's henchmen, a lot of horrible things that were happening because of her connection to a spark. Actually, 3 different sparks, but for different reasons. So the main spark she was connected to was a necromancer named Haven, who was breaking. The next 2 were Bane and Carrion, twins from the Dathmor Kingdom, who also broke. So they were conducting themselves to assist Reketre. And the purpose for this was because Reketre wanted to return her lands and the world that she remembered back to the way it was. Now, these facts have only just started to come to light. It was at the beginning of this year that the players were sent into the depths of Sapphire Lake, which had been a swamp, but Reketre has control of storms. Post Reketre recap. Can we cover breaking? Yeah, I'll do breaking next. So basically, Reketre was frequenting this lake that was once a swamp, that was ancient times, it was a lake. So she had been creating so many storms that there was flooding, that areas of the world were becoming unsafe. And in so doing, the players were met with a fated spark. So I will go over fated sparks versus broken sparks. And this fated spark knew the swamp, had lived in the swamp, and basically said, there's a point of power at the base. They had already come to learn that that lake had somehow managed to connect with the rift. They were side by side, but somehow the magic of Reketre and the rift were becoming melded. So using the Morning Glory, which is a magic ship that can go anywhere, they took it to the bottom of the lake and they found this point of power and they destroyed it. At this point, when they surfaced, that was when Reketre actually stepped forward to say, you ruin everything you touch. You just take and you don't have any consideration for what's left behind. And I'm tired of it. And I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to take the power for myself and I'm going to fix everything. She attacked them. And at that point is when she basically started rampaging and destroying whole cities. The players came to learn that there was a list of names from basically the 100-year battle before the rift exploded. They were known as a group that was going by, called themselves the Blood of the Rift. Now, not to be confused with the rift itself, it didn't exist yet. During that time, there were two warring factions. There was Galen, and there was other Galen. So basically what happened was Reketre started gathering up and killing anybody who was on that list, basically seeking justice for what had been done to her. And that's kind of where we're at now. So basically, with regards to, and Chantel did say this, and I will share it, is the two different kingdoms that were in the ancient world was, okay, I know I said Galen and Galen, but it's because they were siblings. So we have Galen and we have Dathan. So Dathan is now Dathmor and Galen is still Galen. That makes sense. Okay. So now the important thing is going over what the hell a broken is and what a faded is. So understanding sparking is kind of like the key thing in our game world. Sparks, honestly, I owe the creation of Sparks to Robbie. We both played a hand in developing different things for each other's game worlds. And what I really wanted to do with this game world is, I'm a huge WoW nerd. Not so much anymore, but I was. So I really wanted to implement a lot of my favorite things into this world. So introducing trolls, goblins, switching up pixies. I know they're not in WoW, but doing something weird and wonderful instead of just having your typical, oh, I'm a pretty pixie. No, I want you to be a chaos monster and I want you to destroy everything you touch. So basically with the rift, and this was the whole concept for my world, is I wanted a world that forced everyone to be in cooperation with each other. because one thing that really worked for Z World and one thing that I didn't experience in my own time as a PC was a game world where even if you didn't like each other, you still had a reason to work together. For those of you who have LARPed before, for those of you who haven't but have heard stories or maybe little experiences here and there, LARPs tend to get a little clicky. And my experience went from it being clicky to the point where I'd been in a group of barbarians that was ostracized. And that meant we didn't get to go on scenes. People didn't like us. So if we stayed true to our characters, that meant we didn't get invited. Not that we were bad. Sure, we caused mischief, but it was because we were being true to our characters' morals and beliefs. Now, I've been on the other end too, where I've been bullied for the way I played my character. And my goal has always been, it's very important as a player and as a game owner and as just the person on the plot team or the NPC team, is that you need to make sure that no matter how you're conducting yourselves, it's important that everybody's having fun. We've all put in our time, we've all paid, we've all, spent hours laboring over story. Everybody wants to have a good time. Obviously, the NPCs are there to entertain you, so expect that we will probably die the most or, endure the most sadness, although you may think that we're out to get you. But no, it was very important for us to create something that was welcoming. So when I created Kingdoms, I wanted this magical rift to be something that forced all kingdoms to basically strip the players of everything that they had and send them to Riftguard to serve. So my biggest vision was that no matter what those character issues were, and one rule I did make was we would never have any kind of racial wars. So that is a big thing. Although we will talk about orcs, that's a different situation, but there's reasons and I will explain. Is that basically I wanted to make sure that everybody had those things where it was like, I was a knight, I was a lord, my parents and whatever, we have beef with Kitka. I don't know why you'd have beef with Kitka, but all of those things exist. But when you got to Riftguard, that meant all of that had to be put aside. You were now a hero. You were now responsible for the fate of the world. And in this place, you had to let it go. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean your character forgives and forgets, but that's the fun of role-playing that out, is that you have all of these internal conflicts, and we see it every event. We see the players struggling with these thoughts and feelings about certain rulers or certain situations that are happening, but they're peacekeepers. They can have an opinion, but they cannot raise a sword. For example, and we've had this happen, if two nobles or two royals, this is the situation that happened. If two royals come to Riftguard and there is a dispute and they have their favorite royal and they have one they don't like, but the one they don't like draws a sword and tries to stab the other one. Guess what? Hands off, back up. They have to let it happen. They cannot intercede because they are heroes of the Rift. Unless that person throws a fireball, they can't do shit, right? So it's very important for them to kind of balance what can I do? What can I do? How do I influence the situation that doesn't go against my oath? Because if you go against your oath, fate will find you. And that's what breaking is. So now let's talk about breaking. Do you guys have questions so far? Am I being simple enough? I'm trying to keep it. I just love it so much that I could literally explain every little facet. Thumbs up. Anybody? Good? You can use your microphones too. That's okay.
Doing great.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Congratulations.
Breaking. Thank you. So breaking is this. This actually falls in line with the Z-World mechanic for turning into a zombie. So we still call it turning. Basically, when you break, you are basically overthrown by your ambition and become corrupted. Now, you get this a little bit if you become infected. Corruption is a thing that's in the world. It comes from the rift. There's nice things that come from the rift too. We don't see as much of it. Horses are nice, I guess. A true horse is not. Bunnies are bad. Cats are bad. All those things are bad. But corruption is a key component of the rift. So it is a game mechanic that if you come infected, you will turn, you will attack your friends, and they got to put you down. So that will happen. But breaking is that to the extreme. So breaking is basically when your character has basically let go of everything that they love and hold dear and are just seeking power and ambition. Now, maybe they have weird ambitions. For example, Havens are well known, so I can discuss them. Haven's ambition is to feel accepted, is to feel empowered by being powerful and better than everyone else. Because of that, there are bits of her that can be manipulated. But not everybody has that same ambition. Some ambition, people want to control other people. So these are kind of things like as you build your character to kind of consider, like if my character were to break, what ambition would take over? You know, their need for vengeance, all those different things. Bunnies are misunderstood. No, maybe like a bunny. I'm trying to think of a mixture. Dog bunnies? Not bunnies. Deer hair. That's disgusting. So yeah, Breaking Bad. Didn't mean to say that, but breaking is bad. And basically what happens is when your character kind of loses control, they break, they will lose themselves. So it's not like I'm trying to think of a good example of being kind of where you're no longer yourself. I know we have a movie reference or a show reference, but it's escaping me. So
Sorry, that's my bad. That's Has Been Hotel. I have a fascination right now. It's an evil mad scientist. So Albatross, if he cracked, become an evil mad scientist.
careful. I will keep that in mind. I really don't want any more of you to break. We've got 3 that we had.
We've had enough.
It does. I mean, it does make your character unplayable. You definitely don't want to break, but just
You listening, Chris?
yeah, Etrova.
Hey, no.
We will get into the other thing that happens when breaking isn't when you're not full broken. So when you break, you lose your mind, you go crazy, you start destroying your friends, everything, and you become a monster. What was that anime? There's an anime where they become monsters. They have white hair. Anyway,
Bleach.
no. Something to do with swords. I'm not
I've
an
always-
anime person.
Naruto.
I don't know about the
No.
anime, but I always think about in Vampire the Masquerade, there's that concept of like the beast within, and you're always trying to fight against this internal ambition and this beast of negativity that's inside of you at all times.
Yeah. That's basically it. And I mean, just so everybody
Power
understands,
corrupt.
like, oh, it's fun to break. It's so fun to be a monster. Everybody in the game world, every single person on turn knows how terrifying breaking is. It's like breaking is like their top fear, seeing a broken, and then it's the Emperor of Drull. So just so you understand, that is the most terrifying thing in the entire world. And sparks are like the best thing in the world. So there's a duality there. I see people commenting, Atrova, you will need to understand the next part. So when you don't full break, but you are ignoring your fate, fate does find you. And there are bad things that will happen. And this is something that the leading sparks and, you know, the chamber and the leaders of oath will discuss, is that, you know, if you do not adhere to your oath, you are at risk of losing everything anyway. So it's best to kind of find your path, stick it out. You could be there a couple of years, you could be there forever. You may choose to stay after you fade, but your task is to find your fate. Fading is the act of basically, you know, when you spark, you explode with energy, and all of a sudden you're like, woohoo, I have superpowers. And then your kingdom says, woohoo, now we're cooler because we have you too. So go to Riftguard and give us all your stuff and you have fun. In the name of Galen. And then when you fade, you have two choices. Basically, the energy of the rift has left you. You can stay to continue to serve oath on an out-of-game level. At this point, a feat tree opens up where you actually get to start to take on abilities of your kinfolk. So if you're a giant, there's special giant skills that you can take on. Or if you're a sprite, you get the idea. If you choose to go that route, you have 1 year, and then your character gets dusted. Okay? So you have 1 year to continue to play your character unless your character dies. If you do die on the battlefield and no one gets you up, you will dust as well. So there's that chance that you won't get to say goodbye, but you get to die in glory. The other is that your character retires, becomes an NPC, and they live out their life serving one of the kingdoms. And in that instance, they get to pick up their sword in defense of those kingdoms again. And they have all of the knowledge and all of the wisdom that they've gained from being a spark. And all the reputation.
And they can live longer than a year, too.
And they get to live longer than a year.
Which is a huge benefit, in my opinion.
Yes. Well, not everybody wants that, though. Some people want to die on the battlefield. I'm trying to think of any of my characters that would want to die on the battlefield, besides...
I can think of one. I can think of more than one. I can think of more than one. Locke?
Locke is not a spark.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize you were doing sparks specifically.
She's an orc. Orcs are people too.
Okay,
so let me just touch on that, because I did state that we don't do any like racial content. We did have a war on orcs, but I want to explain that really quickly. Because we don't even use the word race. We call it's a kinfolk. So we did in year 1 have a war on orcs. Everybody hated orcs. Everyone wanted to kill orcs. But it was revealed that orcs are people too. So basically they were kidnapped people and transformed using eternal magic. This is something that Haven did as part of her ambitious streak to impress Raketre, the Sentinel. So basically the reason we kind of made an exception here is because we wanted to show how wrong it was. Everybody hated orcs so much that they missed all of the fine details, and then in the end had to go, oh shit, these could be family members. Well, okay. We have to deal with that now. So the orcs don't remember who they were before. There is evidence to suggest that they can remember. And there are 2 types of orc. There are the orcs that were transformed by ritual, and there are trueborn orcs. Trueborn orcs. Oh, it's getting really hard to say all that. Trueborn orcs can spark, and that, once we've completed it, has opened up orc as a kinfolk you can be.
We have a couple questions back up. So the first one would be, how do you intend fading to work for PC Spark?
Fading to work. I kind of already touched on that. So basically what happens is if you choose to turn your character into an NPC, that character will continue to be played by you, and we may, tap you on the shoulder sometimes or talk to you before event and say, hey, we really need so-and-so to come in. Can we come claim you and get your character to come in because we have some shit going on with Etheria or, Van Baron or whatever. Or Drull, Petrova. If you chose to continue to play your character, it's based on, so one of the very important things to me is fairness. Okay, so if someone played their character for a year and just decided, I'm going to throw myself at every battlefield so I just die, and I run off behind things so that I die, so I can fade, and then I get to pick cool sprite powers, not going to serve you. So basically, the amount of abilities that you get to choose from your kinfolk, because this is a new tree that will open up saying, okay, well, you're a level X. You've been playing now for 7 years. This is how much you can choose from your faded tree. And you get to pick abilities based on your kinfolk and not your spark. So you're kind of going in reverse. Because when you fade, you slowly change back to a regular person. Lost my train of thought. So here it is. If you decided, I'm just going to die a whole bunch and then I get to fade, you will have a very limited option pool for your faded abilities because you just basically wanted to be cool. And you can be cool living, So just be you. Unless you really, really want to die, then I'm not going to stop you. Okay? So that's
Are there star signs in turn?
Yes.
There are constellations, yes.
Okay, so fun fact, I actually have developed a not fortune telling, but a zodiac, an elven zodiac, and it is in my original handwritten book, and I've never released it because basically we hit the ground running with Kingdoms Year 1, and I haven't slept for 2.5 years, so it has not been released. If there is somebody that would like to develop those types of things for any of the kingdoms, I do kind of have flavor for each of them because it's very important for me that things kind of match up with the vibe for that kingdom. But yeah, there is an elven one. But if there are people that are creative and want to invest time in doing something like that and want to chat with me, I'm more than open to people being creators for stuff and introducing that into the world officially. That being said, we have to remember that even though each of the kingdoms kind of has like a kinfolk major, so like Etheria has lots of elves, it's not just an elven kingdom. You can be any kinfolk from any kingdom. There are, little groupings here, little groupings there. And because of that, there's a lot of diversity in those belief systems. So do keep in mind that if you wanted to write something into your character backstory that you're like, oh, that really doesn't fit with Dathmor, but I'm a sprite and I live in Dathmor, doesn't mean there's not a pocket of like-minded community members that your character has been with most of their life, and those things can always work. That's why you submit them, and that's why we go through it and go, oh, cool. And then we introduce it officially into the world. And that was kind of always a major thing for me right from the beginning, and why we're still, releasing maps and things like that. I wanted some of the world to be organic in the sense that the player base itself was a cornerstone in how that world was molded and how it kind of grew. Because I can write stories to entertain myself until I die. But that's not the point. We're here to entertain you guys. And although I have ideas and my plot team and anyone else who's participated in creating this world, it's way more enjoyable when we have a creative force instead of a creative person. So things will continue to be introduced into the world where it's like, oh, guess what? You found a village, and this village is weird because so-and-so's from it, Not to point out so-and-so. Do leprechauns... Wait, I think I'm behind on the questions.
Yeah.
Did I answer that? Or did I read?
I think you answered that, yeah. I've got, when did the orcification start happening? When did she start making the orcs?
20 years ago. Well over 20.
At this point, it's like 22, 23.
Yeah, I would say it's about 20.
It was 20 years ago when the game started.
I think it was 22 years when the game started.
Was it really?
I think we're on 20. I don't know, I have a map. Hold on.
Did you make it really nice and easy and make it 24? Did she do it in the year 2000? Haven was like, Y2K, let's make some orcs.
Just a minute, I gotta check my map.
That's awesome.
My super secret map. Hold on.
On the topic of orcs, Echo wants to know when orcs will be playable. I also want to know
as
that.
As soon as the sprites are finished. Okay. Oshrill settlement established 2002. Oshrill established 2020. Minor settlements 2018. So orcs roughly 2002.
A good time for it.
Yeah.
So if you are playing an orc, you should be showing up in Y2K bling. Like Paris Hilton.
Oh God.
What was her line that she always said?
That's hot.
That's hot. I'm gonna do, oh my gosh, that's gonna be an activate.
Oh God. Please.
Oh, thank you. That's a great idea. Thank you, Woodsy. My directors.
Yay.
Okay, what was the next question?
Do leprechauns exist?
I mean, maybe. I would
yes,
say,
in the sense that anything can happen. You live in the world where anything can come out of the rift at any time.
I would say I would never call it a leprechaun.
Yeah.
Is there something that exists that kind of exhibits the same kind of vibe? Sure. But yes and no, I would say.
The Fae, we know the Fae exists in some way, so.
Yeah, the Fae exist, and I do pull a lot of my inspiration from the real world and a lot of TV shows. But, like, for example, after the Eternals disappeared, there's still people that believe in them, and they leave out honey, and they leave out trinkets, and, oh my goodness, somebody took my left socks for getting, there's Eternals in my house. Things like that. Yes, 100%. That is something that exists and is a thing. But leprechauns, maybe not specifically. Is there an education system in the Kingdoms of Turn? If so, please elaborate. Education. Can we go over the number of times people have said that there is a university in Bezia?
Yeah, good God.
Just let's clear it up right now. There is no university in Ravenshaw or Bezia. Bezia is a swamp. But that being said, the entire place is like a learning complex. So
Van
To answer
Buren
the
does school
question-
differently.
I will ramble. So I'm going to answer the question first. In the game world, there are very, very many different types of education systems. Some places it could be, oh, you know, all the old ladies get together and you just send them over to Granny's house and all the kids learn from the grandparents. Hi, Rumble. Sorry, got a cat. Yeah, so in some cases it might be the elders in the community that do it. There are establishments in Galen where a little bit more formal education. But if you go to Galen, like their emphasis is going to be where their history kind of was geared. So Galen was all about knights and, you know, justice and law and order, tradition. Galen had a lot of self-proclaimed knights that basically were like, yo, I'm a knight. And then they would just go parade around the kingdoms being a knight. But no kingdom or lord or anything had ever really said, yeah, okay. Not that they ever did bad. I'm sure some of them did. But that's kind of their history. So if you can kind of put that into a university context, that's kind of what their stuff is like. Whereas you go to Dathmore, the people of Dathmore, just FYI, are cursed. It's considered cursed. Don't say it to their faces. It's rude. But the kingdom of Dathmore, sorry, I can move stuff because this cat wants somewhere to sleep and I soft spot. So the kingdom of Dathmore is very focused on the here and now and trying to remember what was. So Dathmore is a kingdom where, you know, they don't have super long lifespans. So because of that, all of their history is about make sure that other people remember me. Because that's how they get to live on. So you go to any of their libraries, for example, and they're all personalized libraries that focus on that family tree, their accomplishments, with things like these are buttons from my great 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 grandfather's robe, you know, like just anything that's going to preserve why they're so important. So I would say yes, there are different places where you can go and learn a more formal type of education, but just be prepared that depending on the type of kingdom you're in, it's going to be different. Like Kitka, I would expect it to be like some weird school where it's just like one-off courses. Like I'm going to go learn how to make baskets. I'm going to go learn how to, you know, style people's toenails. So just really weird and chaotic, different topics. It's never the same. So where someone might learn 1 month, the next, and we don't have months, one season, the next season, it might be a completely different course altogether. Hope that explains that. What was?
I'm joining you on camera so you don't have to be alone up there.
Thank you. There was a question I saw.
Yes, there is one. There is, after that one, there's one from Symbol. It says, is it possible for a spark to break if they took a drastic action for someone they care about / love? So I think he's saying like, can you do a good thing and break?
Yes, you can still break. It depends on what the action is. Fate can still come after you.
I would argue that every
100%.
broken thinks they're doing a good thing.
100%. You took an oath, and that oath is connected to a massive energy thing. So yeah, you can still think you're doing good, but still break.
So you also have, what is the Dathmore curse again, and why did it happen?
So the Dathmore curse actually goes back to the war. So the ancient war that was 100 years. That war, the people of Dathan became the people of Dathmor. So the people of Dathan were the ones that were blessed by the Eternals. So there were actually people who, just to kind of go over the DNA of the war. So there were humans that sided with the Eternals. Some of those humans and Eternals made babies, and those babies became sprites. Okay? So in ancient times, sprites actually had magic. Once the rift exploded, it's not good magic anymore. Now it's like, if you guys are into Harry Potter, it's like Hagrid. They can't control it. They're lucky if they do. On the flip side, there were humans and there were sentinels, and some of them made babies, and there were giants. Okay? Giants also had kind of innate ability. When the rift exploded, and then too, there were people that were blessed or like got buffed by the Eternals and the Sentinels. So they had strange abilities because they were basically imbued by those creatures, right? So when the rift exploded, a multitude of things happened. Eternals vanished. The Sentinels decided to leave. The sprites got faulty. The giants, that's when the markings first started to appear on their skin. So we have what happened to them. The people who were imbued with sentinel magic became elves. They're actually mutated. And then the people who were imbued with eternal magic became afflicted. So their lifespans became cut. They have the black coming from their eyes. Those were the ones that had eternal magic and the ability to use certain types of magic that no one else had access to. Does that answer you? It was Cassia that asked that? Briar would ask that.
Yes, it was Briar. Hopefully I fixed my mic problem. Does it sound better?
You sound good.
Yeah, that sounds better, Mac.
Okay, cool. I cooked the potato. The next
that why
question
you're
is from Bloom.
Hold on, so Pyre made a point to say, so Bane and Carrion, two broken sparks. One of them was killed, one of them was caught. Some weird shit happened. One of them is pretty much like void of everything. So they're not faded, they're not broken, they're just like vanilla human to the max.
Boring.
There was an entire case. They went to trial. Players got to participate in what their verdict was going to be. So, to answer Pyre, yes, because Dathmor people are so obsessed with making sure that their lineage is secure. When they broke, they basically shamed their heritage. So they have been stricken from the history books. They aren't even permitted like birth records of their existence. They were completely eliminated. And that's the worst form of punishment for somebody from Dathmor. For other people, just to comment on the Dathmor people, the rulership for Dathmor, and I can kind of go into each of the kingdoms if you really want me to. I'm happy to. In Dathmor, they're ruled by 5 houses. They refer to themselves as lords and ladies, but please understand that even though they call themselves lords and ladies, they are royalty. So Lord Marwyn is technically a king, and the ladies are also queens. When you come from Dathmor, if you are afflicted, you will be connected to one of these houses. It is the only kinfolk that hold on, let me backtrack to explain this well. If my dad's an elf and my mom is a remnant, which is a different type of it's a different flavor of human, we can go into that later. If my mom's a remnant, my dad's an elf, I'm a half elf. When I spark, I'm either going to spark as a remnant spark or I'm going to spark as an elf. kinfolk are spark. Okay? Now, this is the only case that this will be if my father is afflicted and my mother is a remnant, I'm afflicted. If my mother is afflicted and my father is a sprite, I'm afflicted. Okay? You will always be afflicted if your family is afflicted. That's part of the reason they call it a curse. So not only are you trapped, but you sparking is actually seen as a woohoo, you're actually going to be able to secure your lineage. You're giving us hope because you will live on. You will live longer than us. You know, you're going to make us great. So that being said, depending on where you're from, you will have that lord or lady title in your name. Okay? So the 5 are Orhelm, Marwyn, Fane, Hilden, and Vimeris. So what will happen is if my name is Jane Smith and I'm from Lady Fane's part of the kingdom, I will be lady, or no, shoot, I won't be a lady. I'm too used to it. I will be Jane Fane. Oh, that was a horrible choice. Jane Fane Smith. Okay. Now, if I'm from Lady Orhelm's part, then I would be Jane Orhelm Smith. Okay. So you're always going to contain that. Now, you don't have to be afflicted to do that. If you have lived in Dathmore your whole life, you can be recognized as part of the house. And the reason you do this is because you want people to be like, oh, you're an Orhelm? You're cool because you're an Orhelm, you know? So.
Family loyalty.
Family loyalty, yeah. What did
Bloom asked a question that other people are kind of asking about as well. His question is more about the ruling and governing structures of the kingdoms, our kingdoms. And then when you said that you could go into each of the kingdoms, Searcher said, please do. And somebody asked how many kingdoms there are. So I think just going over each of the kingdoms on like a light level would be a good idea.
So we have one kingdom for each of the kinfolk. So we have Kitka for the sprites. We have Dathmore for the afflicted. That's a lie, because we have 2 for remnants. We have Ratharin and Galen.
Is it one now?
There's peace there. Etheria is for the elven kinfolk. Oshril is for the orcs and Drull kinfolk.
And whatever Etherians are left.
And whatever's left. Van Baron is for the giants. So each of them do have a different ruling system.
Yeah. They can be anywhere. It's just where these kinfolk originated and kind of started their settlements. Probably luck.
So am I going over the different systems?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good one.
Okay, so Van Baron. Well, can't get into Van Baron too much because there's trouble there. But actually, it's probably good to explain. So Van Baron has a sovereign and sentries that basically help them to govern. Now, the sovereign is basically chosen by how do I explain it? It's like a trial.
Like the way that Supreme Court justices are picked? Like a long series of conversations.
Make a fire. Run 40 miles with no shoes. So Van Baron, the Kingdom of Giants, is focused on 3 things. Mind, body, and spirit. And whichever one you choose to dedicate yourself to is your choice. So if you're a super cool big fighter dude that likes killing things, you're just as respected as somebody who's like, I've read a lot of books, you know? So that's my book voice. So basically, discipline is the key of Van Baron. And their sovereign will basically do a trial. There'll be a whole bunch of people that are put into this trial, and it will test all of the disciplines, and then someone will come out on top. Okay, so that's Van Buren. Except for Martzlock. Martzlock is kind of like
Las Vegas.
it's like the toilet of Van Buren.
No, it's amazing. We love it. You can do anything in Martzlock.
You can. Galen is basically your traditional kingdom. Yeah, it used to, all of the kingdoms used to be Galen. That's important to know. Rathren is the other remnant kingdom. They're technically right now the same kingdom, but the ruler, which is a queen, has decided to keep them separate to honor both of the kingdoms separately. There's a lot of history there. Rathren, it was a very strong kingdom. It's a very small one, but it was kind of neglected when it was part of Galen. And basically what happened was it became overrun with marauders, mercenaries, and thieves and pirates. And now they just coexist there. So I don't know. It's finding its feet, but you have to be careful in Rathren. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say. The queen is super cool though. I like her. Dathmor, like I said before, is ruled by 5 different rulers. Keep in mind that those rulers on every major ruling will agree with one another. So they act together. They will never agree on something that's going to affect all of the kingdoms without that being discussed and agreed upon. Etheria. Etheria was heavily attacked and, you know, suffered a great deal when the orcs first came. When that happened, the royal family was ambushed. Most of the court was killed off, and that left their baby daughter as the ruler. So, a friend of the family, a faded spark named Silran, has basically stepped in as regent to oversee the court and the rulership of Etheria until the Princess Fulwyn is old enough to take her spot. So them, still very traditional type of rulership. Oshrul's the last one. So this place has kind of undergone a lot. So Oshrul is actually half of Etheria. They have been awarded those grounds now. There is a agree to disagree. We're going to try to work this out between the orcs and the elves. But it has changed recently with Drull moving in. Now, Drull is actually one of the outer kingdoms, not part of the Alliance. They do not have sparks. But the Emperor of Drull is one of the most feared, is the most feared person in the entire world. There are others that people fear, but he's at the top of it. He, in his 23 years, he's claimed whole kingdoms and assimilated them into Drull. And yeah, he's got some pretty scary things that he does, and most of what he's accomplished has not been with war. He is the type of ruler to step in and basically destroy you from the inside out and then go, okay, now thank me. And expect you to thank him for it. So you guys have started to experience him, new players. I cannot wait for you to experience this man. He's makes
very much a
me
conqueror.
nervous. Yes, he's very much a conqueror. He makes me nervous, and he's on my team. So that says anything.
It's not on my team.
He's disturbing. Yeah, so Oshrul typically has an overlord. The overlord is in charge of all of the different clans within Oshrul. Currently, that overlord is MIA. And basically what happens when an overlord goes missing, all of the clans just start killing each other to try to figure out who's in charge. Currently, what that has meant is a lot of the clans are currently in charge of themselves because they have found their leaders, their strongest, and they also are under Drell's foot. So there's a lot of, orcs don't like to be viewed as weak, and they're in a situation where they're being forced to submit. So
Thimble wants to
is
know if they
happening.
farm.
Ooh.
The orcs,
Orcs?
if they farm. Yeah.
They did sort of when they were in Drull. I would say a lot of hunting. There would definitely be some kind of farming.
Kind
They're
of have no
not
choice.
stupid. They're not stupid, but yeah, they do need to eat. So yes, there would be some to a degree. Their culture is largely misunderstood. That's all I'm going to say about it, because I'd rather you guys experience them and kind of get to know them in game, because a lot of who and what they are has been formulated by people's opinions of them and not really understood. So I don't want to explain them.
I have a question. Are we done with the kingdoms?
I think so. Did I miss
think
one?
so.
Oh, Kitka!
Oh, Kitka. Oh my
gosh,
god, Kitka. How do you
Kitka,
explain
Sprite.
Kitka?
Chaos. They have an election. So basically it's like Hunger Games, where they're like, okay, we're gonna draw a name out of a hat and that person's in charge. So they draw a name out of a hat, that person's in charge, and then they draw a task. That person has to succeed that task in order to not be mayor anymore. Now, two things about sprites. One, they hate contracts unless they've made them. And two, they hate working unless it's a goal that they wanted for themselves. So when they become mayor, it's basically a race to not be mayor anymore. Okay? So Grand Mayor-elect is not a title any sprite wants, but it is forced upon them. And yeah, that's Kitka.
How much of other kingdoms, how much knowledge of other kingdoms, oh wait, no, sorry, I'm missing one. First, for afflicted, are they mostly half animal, or for visual purposes, are we supposed to see them as a full animal? That depends on the spark.
Okay. So, a little history with myself and why I created the afflicted the way I did. Is Rebecca in here? I hope not. So, as a LARPer, my first exposure to other LARP, and we call them races at Nero, so I will call them races, was the SAR. And the SAR are cat people. And I am a cat person, not legit a cat person. I'm a cat lover. I was not a fan of animal people, and I don't know what it is about it. I'm that way with movies. If it's an animal that's talking and running around, I don't like it. But if it's an animal that's walking and talking, we can
you out.
try and anyway. So because of that, I wanted to make them so a person like myself.
I stand furries. Kelly hates furry.
That's different. That's a state of being. So
It's not a choice.
I myself do not want to play an animal person 24/7. And it's a huge costume requirement. And one of the things about this game is I did want to make it in such a way I can tell you stories about someone meowing at the foot of my bed while I'm trying to sleep because they want let out. That was my first interaction. And I was like, my foot is about a foot away.
Right.
Anyway. Rude. I didn't do anything. I just laid there and pretended to be asleep. Anyway, so he did apologize to me.
My character punches cats, actually.
So he literally turned and looked at me slowly and went, I'm really sorry. And I was like, what is going to happen? And then he turns back to the window and just starts yowling slowly. Anyway, that's my cat story. I love cats. So I wanted to make it very easy for people to play. And we do have a mechanic at Z-World with like the Cybots that at nighttime, their biological functions shut down and they become full-on robots as their other functions take over. So I kind of matched it up with that. Gateway games as a whole, we try to make it attainable for anybody. So like at Z-World, you know, you didn't have to have metal armor. Like we had a player that used car mats, like rubber car mats. If your armor looks like armor, you get armor points. The better it looks, you can get exceptional for that. So creating the sparks the way I did allowed for people to go, oh, I just sparked. I have pink eyeshadow on and sparkles. And turning slowly into something as they built their kit up and became more, you know, entrenched in that character type. So with the Afflicted, you actually get to choose as you level up which parts of you transform. So I believe, Woodsy, you can correct me, there is an ability where you can be transformed during the day.
Yes.
So for those who do like to be cat people, you can be a cat person. And for people like me, I mean, I'm an NPC anyway, so I get to be everybody
don't
all
have
the time, but you don't have to.
And also, if you like the kind of lycanthropy, really like back and forthy kind of attitude for your character, that's kind of fun. It lets you do whatever you want.
Yeah, so, and two, if you don't like face makeup, fine, do the other ones. It just opens it up. And if you want to do all of them, you still can. There's requirements based on level. So the goal is by the time you're a level 10 guardian, you're a freaking animal.
Yeah,
okay?
Almost completely.
Did I answer the question? I totally got distracted.
I think so. How much knowledge of other kingdoms would someone have? For example, if I'm from Kitka, would it be assumed that I would know the info that you said about the other kingdoms if I'm not from there?
It's up to you how stupid you want to be. It's mean.
There's no internet, but people talk to each other.
People talk to each other. It's up to you how well traveled you are. If you want to have had an interest in these other kingdoms and to know these things, everything I have said tonight is general knowledge. I've said nothing that's specific. So feel free to embrace the info. That's why we're doing this. But if your character was more of a recluse, or maybe their family didn't like interact with other families, or they just didn't really care, they didn't want to read a book. Especially if you're from Kitka, you probably don't. There is a museum of the mundane. There are books there. But the other books that you might find are kind of weird. So, but yeah, it's up to you how learned you want to be. And you're always welcome to post questions too. If there's something you want to learn more about, I do plan on doing like a whole bunch of like audio files and break it down. Like, here's the brief history of Etheria, done. Here's the war of Julani and her brother, done.
All those years I spent reading those history books. This is going to come in handy.
There you go. Yeah, so that's just going to take time. That's an extra project, and I just took on a murder mystery, so I like to give myself work, apparently. That's work for work. That's a bug thing.
Bug murder mystery.
A bug.
It was the bees.
It's called Murder in the
Next question
Greenhouse.
we have. Not a stupid question, a smart one. How and why does someone spark, and can you choose to?
How they spark is, we have had a multitude of different ways people have sparked, from finding dead relatives to reading a book. Yeah,
Going to the bathroom.
Going to the bathroom. That'd be
Start
weird
watching.
for an artisan.
No, we have one. We do have one that is that.
Which one?
I can't. I'm not gonna out this person in front of the bathroom in front of everybody.
Could you imagine an artisan though? So just for context, folks, elven artisans can hear voices coming from created objects, such as doors or tables, anything that was man-made, person-made. So toilets would talk to you. And we've had this conversation. And it's a weird conversation. So I'm not going to get into it, but feel free to have fun on your own.
But yeah, it is involuntary. It happens to you. You are chosen.
You were just chosen by fate. Fate decided. I'm not going to repeat that. Fate chose you. And yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. Same with fating. You don't know when it's going to happen. Unless by some miracle, an archon of fate has been like, this is your day, folk. And then you unspark somehow. To spark. So when you spark, basically what happens, and you'll have an option on your backstory form to like say spark me, or hey, this is a general way of how I sparked, but we will add in the extra juice or flavor for you to kind of understand how it happens. So basically you'll be doing something, you'll start to feel tingles, you'll start to see like a glow around your body. Some people don't even notice it, and then energy just kind of explodes out of you. Objects can be thrown back. I think somebody threw somebody once across an entire room.
Yeah, for some people it's like an explosion, and for some people it's like a magical girl transformation.
Yeah. It really varies. Everybody's different.
For folks that can talk to things, plants, animals, the dead, inanimate objects, etc., can they always hear them, or can they turn it off?
It's
less that you turn it off, more that you turn it on.
Yeah, it's usually off. You have to concentrate, especially as a new spark. You really have to put some effort into it. When you do it, let plot know, because we will be the voice. We will always be the voice speaking back to you. Sometimes people will hear animals actually speak to them, or it's kind of like Emperor's New Groove.
Yes.
Squeak, squeaker, squeak, squeaking. Another, like, a fun example, because I even giggled at myself, was somebody who was talking about, it was a piece of parchment. And the parchment expressed to the person that they did not like being creased and folded. And so she decided to roll it. When she unrolled it, she didn't expect. So I just waited until she rolled it up, and then she unrolled it, and it went, wee! And caught her off guard. Oh, and then the time the plant in the cup, and they were like, "Hey, little plant, how are you doing?" And we were like, "Water, I'm dying." They're like, "Oh shit, somebody get a cup of water." So we will always try to keep you on your toes. Sometimes you can get information that way. Sometimes you're talking to a tree that's been there for 1,000 years, and it's like, let me sleep, get away from me, or I don't remember anything, I'm too old. So it is for you to explore in game. Over time, your character will get better at it. It's not meant to be something that should be super easy to do, but sometimes it is. It really depends on the mindset your character is in and what's going on around your spark. How human do things and creatures sound? Do they frequently have complex? It varies, Searcher. So sometimes creatures, they don't necessarily understand how people communicate. They would communicate like an animal would. Like their focus is instinct, hunting, that kind of thing. So it really depends on the situation and the object that you're trying to speak to. We do try to keep in mind, okay, we're talking to a rose. That's a rift. I almost said animal. That's a rift plant. We're close to the rift. This rose doesn't interact with people. Or you're trying to talk to pine cones, and this farm has like 16 kids. So they hear little kids speaking all the time. It really depends. We have a very creative team that will react accordingly. Anybody else? If a table is made out of a tree, who can speak to it? It would be a dead tree at that point, artisan. Unless you're somehow a necromancer druid, which do not exist.
Or
And
if you grew a bonsai tree, I can feel Dom in the chat tonight. You could grow a bonsai tree in the shape of a table, and then it might be alive and also a table.
Yeah, it depends on if it's actively a living creature. A rock. If it's just a rock being used as a table, you would need a druid. If it's a rock that has been shaped to look like a table, you would need an artisan. You could try a druid, maybe. Again, it would.
Does the table think of itself as a table, or does it think of itself as a rock?
How does the table identify?
Yeah. Can druids talk to rocks? I don't think so.
Yes, 100%.
Well, it depends. I think it depends on the situation, not just like in the same way that you can't talk to every single individual blade of grass.
Well, yeah, but a rock is a part of nature.
Yeah.
Rocks, trees. We've had druids try to talk to the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you could try to talk to a cloud if you can yell that far.
What about like, no, not ridiculous, but like mushroom fungus network that spans the entire forest and helps trees communicate? How could a druid talk to them and ask what's going on in this area? Are they getting squished?
So it hasn't done, and I will share it, but I'm not going to share what the information was or who did it. Basically, it turned into a horrible situation of broken telephone.
Yes, love it.
So yes, it can be done. Not recommended.
The quick way to insanity for a druid.
Yes. Yeah, talking to anything that's not human is going to drive you crazy. We'll make sure of it. Mushrooms are not nice. Okay, is there anything weird that I've mentioned that people would like elaboration on? Thanks, Albatross. Maybe we should talk about spark names. Real quick. Oh, wait. So one of the mechanics of Z-World is that you don't tell anybody your birth name. As soon as you're born, your parents give you a fake name to hide your birth name because blood magic is a very, very scary thing. It's a dangerous thing. It's like the concept that if a fairy knows your true name, then you're in trouble. So that's kind of the premise for names at Z-World. So everybody had handles, right? So we had like Deputy, Trench, Dew. All the leeches were named after cleaning detergents. Butcher, like everybody has a handle, much like, the Matrix or whatever. So that was something that was very important for me to kind of continue on with Kingdoms. So when you spark, unlike Z-World, your names are still your names. There's no crazy magic that's going to go against you. But that being said, when you take your oath, you kind of leave that behind. And that's a representation of moving forward, accepting your place as a spark, and being a member of Oath. So you take on a hero name. And what your hero name should do, and I actually have a document I'm working on called Welcome to Riftguard. and it basically goes over all your basics. So this is one of them, and that's your hero name should embody something that your character would like to instill in others, or it's something to them that really helps them get out of bed in the morning, something that makes them pursue their fate and tries to inspire others. So again, just like Z-World, very simple handle-like names that represent your character's true self, let's say. And that is the name that they are meant to use. What if you don't know your pre-spark name for the oath ceremony? Everybody coming into game should know their name. Unless there's some like crazy reason they don't, then that's something that you would go through with a plot team member, and we would have a reason, or we would know the reason.
It also has ways of doing its research on you to find out what your true name is. So.
Yeah, there's an entire faction for that.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, there was also one. Briar asked, for any of the royal/important families, will we ever see family trees if it's plot related? Yes, people already have. You just have to ask for them in game.
Yes, so Dulani, so the Queen of Galen, there is 600 years of history developed for her. And I will not hesitate to generate another 1,000 years of history for any ruler if I need to. If it is plot related, I will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that information is put together.
I have a couple hundred years of Marwyn as well.
Yeah, we actually introduced 600 years of Dulani's family history, and the character was so excited to receive it, and by the next morning he lost it.
It fell on the cliff.
So, shit happens. But yes, I will do anything for this game, and I will continue to do anything for this game to make sure that the history and everything is fleshed out. So when you guys learn stuff, it means something. It's not just flavor. And I literally have a massive glossary. So character names and things that other people have met have come up again. Books or documentation that people have learned about, taverns, that stuff is all documented. It means something. And so do your OCTs. So when you get them, clues are important. Wait, hold on. There are cameras. You can pretty much blame sprites for anything. They make a lot of weird shit.
Yeah, for the camera question, that is the excuse we came up with. That was the excuse at the banquet. We explained it as like a very rudimentary tin type photography type of thing. Because Turn is not technically like a medieval world. It's 2024 there, just like it is 2024 here. It's just a giant rift exploded, so instead of focusing on like world wars and stuff, everybody focused on trying not to die from the rift.
Magic. It's just a different kind of world. But they do have like there is a bit of a steampunk element. Even Dathmore is very like Edwardian kind of Elizabethan style. Someone tried to take a picture of the sky with the afflicted moon show up on the camera. No, the only people who can see the afflicted moon are afflicted sparks. What's the difference between kingdoms and Riptide? Everything. But there is some fine details. So kingdoms is a boffer LARP. It's a 3-weekend event? I think I'm getting tired. A 3-day event. You're there the whole time. You're in character. It's very specific world that you're engaging in. Riptide is a I can't say it's a non-combat LARP. There is combat, but it's not boffer. So no bot for combat. You're in a completely different world. So in Riptide, basically you've lost yourself at sea and you end up in this flat world that doesn't make sense and it's all magic. The gameplay style is more focused on, well, I gotta stop saying it's more focused on roleplay because that suggests Kingdoms isn't heavily roleplay based. Kingdoms is a very exciting mix of roleplay, cinematics, so like cutscenes, and boffer combat. You will never fight anything for no reason at Kingdoms. You will always fight something because it means something. We don't just go out there to try to slaughter you. It's always story relevant. If we're slaughtering you, you should find out why. That being said, Riptide has similar elements because obviously the owner is the same person, me. And the plot teams have experienced and really come to love the different elements of Kingdoms and Z-World. So in Riptide, it's more politically focused, more political focused role play where you're trying to build reputation. That reputation is a currency. And then the combat system is a deck of cards. I've designed the game myself. The game is kind of a mixture of Munchkin and Magic. And basically, as you gain in reputation, you can get new cards to put into your deck to build it however you would want. So if you want your character to be a brawler, you're obviously going to look for booty cards that are like, I have a fist, I have a short sword, I have more chairs. Or if you want it to be more magic based or weird, like I want to be the guy that fights with a rubber chicken and a bottle of dirt. Like, it really depends on the type of character you want to play and how you want to build that deck. So I hope that explains a subtle difference between the two.
Can you explain the afflicted moon versus the normal moon?
Yes, no. I can explain what it is, but I can't explain why it is. So the afflicted moon is seen by afflicted sparks. So werewolves, werecats, werevarmin, werebears.
Only afflicted sparks. That's a really important distinction. It's only afflicted sparks that see it, not all
Just the
afflicted.
sparks. Now, the fun thing, we have a similar mechanic at Z-World where, well, it's similar, but it's not similar. So we had something called feeding time. So the mutates at Z-World, when it was feeding time, basically they'd release a pheromone and the mutate would scream, "It's feeding time." Any mutate that heard that phrase would also have to yell it. So basically what would happen is the pheromone would basically get carried all the way across the entire campsite. And depending on the event and the theme of the event, there was different things that would happen. So I remember I was playing a mutate NPC. We all got triggered by feeding time, and I grabbed somebody, dragged them outside, and buried them because we were saving people for later. Now, in most cases, if what you were trying to do was interrupted, you attacked. Okay? There was always a way around it, and usually it was like, just let them bury them, and then we'll unbury them. It's fine. So with Kingdoms, the afflicted, when they spark, they start to see this other moon. And this other moon does not have a rational cycle. It changes. Sometimes it could be backwards. They're the only ones that can see it, but it does affect them. So unlike Z-World, where we would have, it's feeding time and it would happen at certain times throughout the day. With the afflicted, basically the afflicted are given a summary of behavior and how they will conduct themselves. So famously, we had an event where they became territorial And their instruction was simply to make sure that they claimed anything they felt belonged to them, and anything they wanted, they would lay claim to. So my example jokingly was peeing on things. But also like, like a cat rubbing on something, like rub your arm against it, or always put it on your side of the table. So there's always a prompt with an idea of how to conduct yourself. We had a lot of people peeing on people.
Yeah.
Actually, obviously, this game is a narrative game. So you will hear a lot of descriptives, like just kind of on that same kind of thought. The LARP I came from, when monsters came out of the bushes, it would be like 1, I come out of the bushes, 2, I come out of the bushes, 3, I come out of the bushes, which is lame. So what we have is a narrative. So our monsters, they know the environment, they know what it looks like, and they're going to describe how they come out of the bushes. And in a lot of cases, our NPCs will just act it out too. So it'll be like, I come crawling out of the dirt, spitting, whatever, whatever we want. So people peeing on people is a narrative, not an actual fact. Please don't pee on people.
Back to the moon.
Do that at home.
If we can get away from pee and back to the moon.
Yes.
Has anybody ever taken a photograph of it, of the afflicted moon? Does it show up in a photograph? Can a spark see it in a photograph? Searcher asked this question.
Absolutely.
I have no idea. Yeah, I didn't think so.
Nope. Sparks are weird. It can be.
This is a Riptide question. Is there a messaging system in Riptide, like messenger birds? Searcher wants to send you more emails.
Great. More things to do. So because Riptide's still alpha testing, there's a lot of implementations that haven't happened yet and will take time. So we're only on our second alpha test day that's coming up this Saturday. There will be a system like Message in a Bottle, but not yet. I need to retain some of my sanity. The game is fully complete, and then we'll implement something like that. See lots of people typing. You guys can use your microphones if you do want to just ask a question. It's faster.
When and where is the next Kingdoms event?
So the next Kingdoms event will be at the Hagersville farm. That being said, there was a camp there the last couple weeks of July, so I intend to go out there and make sure the site is in proper order, because we have experienced it when it was not in proper order before, and we would like to keep it clean for everyone. Oh, thank you, Woodsy. So the next event is actually our long weekend event. So that one's going to be from Friday to Monday instead of Friday to Sunday. So we have a whole extra day to do crazy stuff. And we have planed some some crazy stuff for you guys. Now, that being said, it's going to be broken into 3 logistics periods. So obviously, if you can't attend for all the periods, just when we post up the registration, just read through. It'll explain how the log periods work. Because some people might want to NPC for 1 log period and PC for the rest. That kind of stuff. It'll all be outlined in the registration form. Yeah, so long weekend is Kingdoms, and then we do have one more Kingdoms event after that in October, which I think is the weekend of the 19th. And then we have our banquet on November 30th. So, yes, it's a banquet, and it's only 1 day, but it will feel like an entire weekend. I can
Yeah.
promise you that.
I have a
We
question.
basically go 10 a.m. until 1 a.m. We were renting a site that we did last year. So it's a church. We have access to 3 different rooms plus the kitchen. So we do the food on site as well. And basically, so our finale will be the Halloween event, which is our Halloween event, which obviously we always try to do creepy, crazy stuff. And then the November banquet event is kind of like the explanation of the world is all the royalty basically are throwing a party for the Sparks. So at that point, you get to meet all of the nobility and royals from all across the kingdoms and, wine and dine with them. And it's a great time because there's always something terrible that happens and you have to figure out how to fix it. So Drull, I will talk about Drull because art. So currently Edmund does have the title of Overlord. The reason I said the Overlord is MIA is because obviously Edmund, as the Prince of Drull, is not recognized by the orcs whatsoever. He is the Overlord because the Emperor said so. So yes, there is an Overlord, but he's a conqueror. Are you really sure you want to bring Locke back, Marcia?
Yeah, stop Locke focusing on the task she's currently focused on. That's a good idea.
Do we have any other kingdoms questions, Spark questions, ancient history questions? I think reasons why we did stuff a certain way question, anything. You guys can just throw questions out there. I think maybe we'll just go till 10, so we've got 10 more minutes.
If you are willing to post the yes.
The what thing? Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, I will. I have to dig out that book. It's got all my ancient notes about my ideas for what everything was going to be. It's my scrapbook. I don't even know how fully formed it is, but I remember drawing a circle and it's divided basically by the seasons because the game world is by seasons, so there are no months. There are numbers, so it's like every 3 months is a season. So like November, December, January is the season of frost or the season of winter. Everybody has different names for it. So November would be early frost, mid frost is December, late frost is January, and then the number is the number of the month. So December 20th would be mid frost, the 20th day. So, for example, Dulani would be midsummer, 20th day. That's July 20th.
Yeah, even if you have a calendar that you could post that would break down the yearly timeline like that, I think that would be helpful. Not only for other people, but for me.
It is posted.
Where?
It's also posted in the plot channels. Yeah.
I know we have a write-up one, but is there one of the way that people?
I'm pretty sure in brackets it says the months.
It says the months. Okay.
Because I refer to it quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to remember. Obviously,
I
if your
usually go by
character's
weather.
like, hey, I was born in July, no one's gonna bite your head off, and if they do, that's rude. That's okay.
Yes, I have seen this image.
See? Brackets. I don't
know why I was picturing something different.
They even have little pictures. There's an acorn there. Now,
The moon cycles is
different-
also fine. People would use different things.
yeah, moon cycles is fine too. Nilo's typing. I don't know. I'm playing with this little child's
Baby spoon.
toy. It's toy fork.
Oh,
I was forced to eat a banana earlier. It was plastic. Judy. There's a cat meowing at the foot of my bed. Hello, I saw you typing. Are you asking a question? Your toy. I did die laughing because we hear all the little stories from the NPCs when they come back to creature camp, and hearing that Aster, like Jeff's Dathmore character Aster, came back and was like, I can't even do the accent. Like, what accent is it?
I can't. It's terrible.
To state in game that everybody was pissing on each other in that accent, I died. It was fun. You could make us laugh a lot.
Is there anything new players should know for this upcoming event?
Brace yourself. So one thing I would definitely say as somebody like my first event as a LARPer was completely overwhelming. Okay. And we do try to keep this in mind when you guys come into. And that's why we don't do rules calls on the field. If you don't say boost health pool 10 and you say, I boosted your 10, so what? We know what you're doing. You're still learning. No one's going to fuss over it. Okay. So do your best to learn the basics. If you've been playing 5 years and you don't know how to die yet, that's a you problem and you should fix it. But when you're learning, it takes time. Same with history stuff. Nobody's going to fault you for not knowing everything. So keeping that in mind, my first event, I was so overwhelmed that I literally said, I'm never doing this again. I went home. I was like, not doing that. That was intense, and I'm shy, and which you might not get from me right now, but so basically what ended up happening was I spent the next week or two remembering all the things that happened, all the funny things, all the crazy things, and remembering, like, you know, you don't run in fear for your life and laugh your ass off like you do at LARP in the real world. And you kind of leave everything at the door and you play your character for that weekend. And that's what made me go back. And then Robbie's crazy antics as a plot person made me stay. So working with Robbie and getting to know his like writing style really was something that made a difference for me. And now I would say, as a new time player, expect Friday to be chaotic. Do not expect to memorize everything that happened unless your character has a journal. And don't beat yourself up if you don't quite understand, because it will come. The more you put into your character, the more you're going to get out of it. And we're all there to look after you. The other players, NPCs, everybody will be there to support you. And that is one thing that I stand by with this game and the Gateway Games community is time and time again, people have said that it's a very welcoming group. And being that our entire game world and focus is you're all a part of Oath. You don't have to like each other, but you all have to work together, right? So it is very cooperative based. We don't focus on PvP. It will happen. If you turn, you will attack your friends. If Haven gets you, you will attack your friends. And sometimes you get cursed or weird stuff is going on and you may attack your friends. They need to figure out why. Okay? So we do create strife, we do create conflict, all of those things that you would get in any other game. But we do it in a way that it's still a community and it's still focused on one goal. That being said, your Friday night, like I said, is going to be chaotic. We're all there for you. In the daylight, it will be easier. At nighttime, everybody's just hitting you. You don't know where it's coming from.
You can go to bed. You can go to bed whenever you feel like going to bed. You don't need to wait until everybody else does. That was not something I thought that with my first event. I thought that everybody was gonna like go to bed, so I just kept waiting for everybody to go to bed and was like, oh my god, I'm so tired. You just go to bed. Everybody just goes to bed.
I'm the person that likes to stay up until the sun is coming up. I don't know what you're talking about. But
especially on a long weekend, though, if you keep yourself up on Friday night, you're not going to make it to Monday.
Yeah, you will.
No, you won't. You should have you should think longevity-wise about your LARP career.
Think of all the
if you only want to do it for 5 years, do it like that. But if you want to do it long term, you got to take care of your body, take care of your temple.
Nah, you got to suffer for the craft.
No. Okay, and don't listen to the NPCs.
I'm on Jake's side. Have fun at your speed. If you're the type of person that has the juice to stay up until all the NPCs have collapsed and gone to bed, do it.
Are all sparks escorted to Riftguard by sparks, or do some make it there other ways?
Okay, so this is important. So when you spark, you're basically reported to your kingdom's ruler. Jim Barron's in a weird situation, but the sentries will take care of you. So you report in, you're celebrated, you are a hero now. So there's parades for you, there's celebrations in the street, there's all kinds of stuff, except the weird time when Galen hated sparks and you got vegetables thrown at you, but that was different. They were starving. They ate those vegetables too. I remember narrating that. So, times your experience coming in will be different. But one thing that we do, and this I feel makes a big difference for new players, is as a new player, you're not just going to come into game by yourself. You're actually going to come into game with all of the new people, and we usually have anywhere from 1 to 6 new players at once. So I'm trying to think of the most we've had at one time, except for the first event, which I was shocked at our numbers, our first event. I am the type of owner that will always be humbled by people showing up at my game, by the incredible plot team, by the songs that people write about the game world, stories, drawings, anything. I freaking love you guys. So I'm just putting that out there now. Anyway, first game, you will come in with all the new sparks. And basically what happens is there's a certain point that that Oath will send a guardian to go meet or intercept sparks coming from different kingdoms. And at that point, it becomes your solemn walk of, when I get there, it's over. I'm a hero. I'm a spark. Celebration stop and work begins. So you will come into game with experienced guardians and the rest of the other sparks as well. In some cases, we even split sparks up depending on what kingdom they're from. It just depends on how many are coming in and from where and what's going on in the world.
How worried do they have to be about attacks on their cabins or tents this long weekend?
I will always say you should be worried. It really just depends on the story. What is happening in the story? If there's like a medical reason, or for some reason like you get super stressed, can't handle that kind of stuff, you are welcome to go to bed out of game, put a weband on, or signify that your bunk is out of game. Giant piece of paper taped to it, out of game. But we do ask, like, one of the very important things for us is in-game immersion. So letting us know that there is this very specific reason that you prefer to do that. Maybe you're prone to panic attacks, or maybe you have an apnea machine or whatever, and you can't easily get out of bed. We will always accommodate. If in any situation, if you need time to participate, that time is provided to the best of our ability. Okay. So please let us know if there's a particular reason you can't be woken. If it's just because you feel like you don't want to get out of bed, then you may die in bed. That's okay too. You can do that. It's okay. But we do try to be accommodating. Like, we're not going to rush into your cabin, slaughter you before you even understand what's going on. We're going to milk it because we want to watch it happen too. We want to enjoy it. We might not even kill you. We might be just there to torment you. You don't know. How often have we had cabin raids? Very infrequently. But I don't want to say it's not going to happen.
I don't know if it's infrequent. I think it's just not necessarily as devastating as it was at Zero. I always go in the cabins.
Okay. I don't always make
Not
it
in the
to
middle
the
of the night, though.
cabins. Yeah. It could be how you wake up. It's not necessarily at night.
If you're, we do call it wake up crunchies for a reason. If you're in bed and we're kicking your butt, you should get out of bed.
The world is meant to be a scary place. Yes, we have our B-movie moments, and I have some planned for next event, 100%. But, you know, we try to skirt the line of respecting and terrifying.
There also was, not everything that comes into your cabin will kill you. One of my favorite moments ever was coming into a cabin in the morning as a player was getting dressed, and my little mushroom character going from saying, hello, hello, to saying, Nikki, Nikki.
I
love the
was a
mushrooms.
fool last event and stepped into Tennant's cabin and waited very patiently for him to put his glasses on, and then he went, oh dear, and we fought. So, you know, it really depends on the situation, the monster, and what's happening. We want you to suffer, but we want you to enjoy the suffering.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it. I'd say 80% is oh dear.
I think there was a question I missed. Do we bring our own tents? That was kind of answered.
So there's cabins. You can bring tents. You can, if you really want to sleep in your vehicle, you can. Just understand that we might not find you there, so you might miss out if there is something going on.
Tents and vehicles are both off limits for raids. We're not going to open your car. We're not going to open your tent. That's considered an invasion of your personal property.
We may wait outside your tent, though.
We'll wait outside, yeah, or outside your car. But that's called loitering, and that is not a crime in this case.
I will break your tent. No, wait.
I'll rip your tent apart.
Physically break your tent, but there are monster abilities that could force you to.
I'll unpeg your tent so it floats into the lake.
Oh no. That was so bad.
That was so funny.
That wasn't your fault, though. Make sure you put your
Put your tent pegs in, especially if it's windy.
Yes, please peg your tent. Tent your peg, man. Just tent your peg.
Sasha had a question about
okay.
character sheets.
So when I just wanted to tell, the bell thing, when I don't know if you guys know where the little pond is, that's where Barbarian Camp used to be. And we had like one of those dollar store horns, like just those big, I don't know if they even have them anymore. But because we wouldn't yell for help because we were barbarians, we were too proud. But we would use the Matterhorn and we called it a Matterhorn because you used it if something was the matter. But we would just blow that, and that would bring the attention to us without us crying for help. But it was only for our barbarians. It wasn't for everyone else. Okay, what was the...
Searcher wants to know if we wish to make changes to our character sheets, for example, add feats or skill points, etc. Should we message you before sheets come out, or wait for sheets to be sent pre-game?
We'll wait until the sheets are sent. Yeah, 100%. Because I get really bombarded with my task lists. I'm the type of person that I like to suffer the most on the team because I don't want people to be super stressed. Like I tend to be, just because there's so much to do. So if you send me stuff and it's getting close to the event, I might forget. I'll just say that. I might forget. The other thing too, like if I am messaged the day of event, I will not see it until I get to site. So
Friday does not count. Friday is not a day.
We have June, we have Woodsy, we have Rebecca in a pinch too. So we do have our team that if you had to reach out to somebody, at least they might be able to answer for whatever you needed. I mean, I'm always available for questions or weird questions, any questions. You just message me. I am there for you. And if I don't have time to answer it, then I may forward you on to somebody that I think can help you, especially with rules. Woodsy is my person. So, or Mac. I say Woodsy because of my.
It's fine.
Because of Z.
It's all good. It's still my Steam account, so it's fine. She lived, so you can still call me that name.
I can. All right, now we're talking about kazoos. Are we done with any of our major questions? Is this helpful for everybody? Because I can do this a little bit more regularly if we need to. Because it was like, what, 2 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly and Mac.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, guys, for taking some time and learning a bit about the world. And I know a lot of you have been there before, but sometimes extra info is always good, and then it gives you a chance to learn a little bit more about little fine details or the crazy things that are behind the scenes and steamrolling all of this unique craziness. Very, very excited for Riptide this weekend. There are some, I'm currently working on the feats, so keep an eye out for stuff like that. And then we'll also have lots of stuff going on for Kingdoms, so I'll come up fast. So if you do have questions and you need answers, please send messages. And yes, we can't wait to meet everybody in game. That'll be great. All right, thank you. Nice
Thanks
chatting
for
with
the
everybody.
information. It was awesome.
Bye.
Anytime. Night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.